The rain came down in sheets, hammering the roof of our rented cabin like it wanted to break through. I stood by the window, watching the Smoky Mountains disappear into a gray blur, my heart pounding louder than the storm. This trip was supposed to be an escape, a chance to breathe. But now I was trapped in a wooden box with the one person who could unravel me without even trying. My name's Eli, and I'm 24, a graphic designer from Nashville with a habit of overthinking everything. I've spent years hiding who I am, tucking my truth into the corners of my life like a secret I could never afford to lose. Growing up in a small Tennessee town, I learned early that being openly gay wasn't just a risk, it was a death sentence for your social life, your family ties, sometimes even your safety. So, I kept my head down, dated girls when I had to, and let my best friend, Connor, think I was just like him, straight, uncomplicated, safe. Connor. God. Even thinking his name sends a jolt through me. He's 25, a mechanic with hands that could fix anything: cars, bikes, even the busted porch swing at my mom's place. He's got this easy grin that makes you feel like the only person in the room, blue eyes that cut through you, and a laugh that's half mischief, half warmth. We've been inseparable since high school, bonded over late-night video games and sneaking beers by the river. He's the kind of guy who'd give you the shirt off his back, then tease you for needing it. But he's straight. Always has been. At least, that's what I told myself every time my heart tripped over itself when he slung an arm around me or leaned too close. This trip was his idea. Let's get out of the city. Man, he'd said one night at our favorite dive bar, his voice rough from a long day at the shop. Just you, me, and the mountains. No work, no drama, just us. I'd agreed, ignoring the way my pulse spiked at the thought of a week alone with him. It was just a camping trip, I told myself. Just friends. Nothing more. But now, standing in this cabin as the storm raged outside, I wasn't so sure. Connor was sprawled on the couch, his flannel shirt unbuttoned just enough to show the edge of a tattoo he got last summer, a compass. Because he said he was always finding his way. He was flipping through a dog-eared hiking guide, oblivious to the war going on inside me. I turned back to the window, trying to focus on the rain. But all I could think about was how small this cabin felt with him in it. Yo, Eli, Connor called, his voice pulling me back. You good? You've been staring out that window like you're planning to fight the storm. I forced a laugh, turning to face him. Just thinking about how we're stuck in here instead of hiking. You owe me a sunny day, man. He grinned, tossing the guide onto the coffee table. Blame Mother Nature, not me. Besides, we've got cards, whiskey, and this sweet fireplace. We'll make it work. I nodded, but my stomach twisted. It wasn't the storm keeping me on edge, it was him. The way he looked at me sometimes, like he saw more than I wanted him to. The way he'd brush past me, his hand lingering on my shoulder a second too long. I'd spent years convincing myself it was nothing, just Connor being Connor. But lately, those moments felt heavier, charged with something I couldn't name. Let's play some cards, he said, standing and stretching, his shirt riding up to reveal a sliver of tan skin. I looked away, my face heating up. Loser does dishes for the week. You're on, I said, grateful for the distraction. We sat at the rickety kitchen table, the storm a constant roar outside, and dealt a deck of cards. For a while, it felt normal trash talking, laughing, pretending I wasn't hyper-aware of every move he made. But then he leaned forward, his knee brushing mine under the table, and I froze. You're cheating, he teased, his eyes locked on mine. I can tell by that shifty look you've got. I'm not shifty, I shot back, but my voice came out too quiet, too raw. He didn't pull his knee away, and I didn't move mine either. The air between us thickened, and I swear I could hear my own heartbeat. The game went on, but the tension didn't break. By the time we finished, the whiskey bottle was half empty, and the fire had died down to embers. Connor leaned back in his chair, studying me like he was trying to solve a puzzle. You've been weird lately, he said, his voice softer now. Serious. Not just tonight. For weeks. What's going on? Eli. I swallowed hard. My mouth dry despite the whiskey. Nothing's going on. Just life. You know. He didn't buy it. I could see it in the way his jaw tightened, the way his eyes searched mine. Don't bullshit me. We don't do that. If something's eating you, tell me. I wanted to. God. I wanted to spill everything how I'd been in love with him since we were 17. How every casual touch felt like a knife. How I was terrified of losing him if he ever knew. But the words stuck in my throat, heavy as stones. Instead, I stood, muttering something about needing air, and headed for the porch. The rain was colder than I expected, soaking my shirt in seconds. But I didn't care. I gripped the railing, staring into the dark, trying to breathe through the panic clawing at my chest. I couldn't keep doing this pretending, hiding, lying to the one person who mattered most. But what was the alternative? Tell him and watch our friendship burn to the ground. I didn't hear Connor follow me until his hand was on my arm, pulling me back under the porch's overhang. What the hell? Man, he said, his voice sharp but laced with worry. You're gonna freeze out here. I'm fine. I lied. But my teeth were chattering, and my hands wouldn't stop shaking. He didn't let go, his grip firm but gentle. And when I finally looked at him, his face was closer than I expected, his eyes dark with something I couldn't read. You're not fine, he said, his voice low, almost a growl. And I'm not letting you stand out here acting like you are. I opened my mouth to argue, but nothing came out. The rain roared around us, the world shrinking to just him and me. And for one reckless moment, I thought about closing the distance between us. Just one step. One word. One truth. But I didn't. I couldn't. Not yet. The storm didn't let up, and neither did the tension. Back inside, we dried off by the fire, the silence between us heavier than the damp clothes clinging to my skin. Connor didn't push me to talk again, but his eyes kept flicking to me, like he was waiting for me to crack. I busied myself with the fire, poking at the logs until sparks danced up the chimney. Anything to avoid looking at him. My mind was a mess. Replaying that moment on the porch, his hand on my arm. The way his voice had softened. The way I'd almost said something I could never take back. I wasn't ready for this. For him to see the parts of me I'd buried so deep, even I barely recognized them. Eli, he said finally, breaking the silence. He was sitting on the couch again, one leg pulled up, his arm draped over the backrest like he owned the place. You gonna tell me what's up? Or do I have to guess? I laughed, but it came out wrong. Brittle. You're not that good at guessing. Try me. His tone was light, but his eyes were serious, pinning me in place. I set the poker down, my hands unsteady, and turned to face him. It's nothing you need to worry about, I said, the words tasting like ash. Just personal stuff. He raised an eyebrow, clearly not buying it. Personal stuff? Huh. Like what? You got a secret girlfriend you're not telling me about? The question hit like a punch, and I flinched before I could stop myself. He noticed, of course he did. Connor always noticed. His grin faded, replaced by something sharper, more focused. Wait. Is that it? You're hung up on someone? No. I said too quickly, my face burning. It's not like that. Then what's it like? He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and I felt like I was under a spotlight. Come on, man. It's me. You can tell me anything. Could I? Could I really tell him that the person I was hung up on was sitting 3 feet away, looking at me like I was the only thing that mattered? My chest ached with the weight of it. The years of wanting. The fear of ruining everything. I opened my mouth, searching for a lie. But what came out was closer to the truth than I meant. I'm just scared, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. Scared of messing things up. With you. With everything. His brow furrowed, and for a second, I thought he'd push harder, demand answers I wasn't ready to give. But instead, he stood, crossed the room in 2 strides, and sat next to me on the hearth, close enough that our shoulders brushed. You're not going to mess anything up, he said, his voice steady. Certain. Not with me. I wanted to believe him. God. I did. But he didn't know what he was promising. Didn't know the storm raging inside me was bigger than the one outside. I stared at the fire, my throat tight, and muttered, You don't get it. Then make me. His hand landed on my knee, a casual touch that sent my heart into overdrive. Talk to me, Eli. I couldn't. Not yet. Instead, I stood, mumbling something about being tired, and headed for the bedroom. The cabin had 2 beds. Thank God. But they were close enough that I could hear him breathing as he followed me in. We changed in silence, the air thick with unspoken words. And when I climbed into my bed, I thought that was it. We'd sleep. The storm would pass. And tomorrow we'd pretend this night never happened. But then Connor spoke, his voice soft in the dark. You know I've got your back. Right. No matter what. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My eyes burned, and I turned to face the wall, trying to steady my breathing. The rain kept falling, a steady drumbeat, and I thought I'd lie awake all night, haunted by what I couldn't say. Then I felt the mattress dip. My heart stopped as Connor slid into my bed, his arms slipping around my waist like it was the most natural thing in the world. What the hell are you doing? I whispered, my voice shaking. Can't sleep, he mumbled, his breath warm against my neck. Just let me stay here. Okay. I should have pushed him away. I should have laughed it off, made a joke, anything to keep the lines clear. But I didn't. I lay there, frozen, as his arm tightened around me. His body pressed against mine like a lifeline. My heart was a riot, my mind screaming that this was a mistake. But my body betrayed me, leaning into his warmth. Connor, I started, but he cut me off. Chill. Just sleep. Eli. His voice was low, almost pleading, and I didn't know what to make of it. Was this just him being clingy, the way he sometimes got after too much whiskey? Or was it something else? Something I was too scared to hope for. I didn't sleep much that night. His arm stayed around me, his breathing steady, and every time I tried to move, he pulled me closer. By morning, the storm had passed, but the one inside me was just beginning. Morning broke with a fragile kind of clarity, the kind that comes after a night you're not sure you survived. The cabin was quiet, the rain gone, replaced by sunlight streaming through the windows, painting the wooden floors gold. Connor was already up, making coffee in the tiny kitchen, his hair a mess and his flannel swapped for a faded t-shirt. He looked so normal, so unaffected, that I wondered if I'd imagined the way he'd held me all night. I stayed in bed longer than I meant to, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of it. My skin still tingled where his arm had been, and my heart hadn't stopped racing since he'd climbed into my bed. Was it just comfort for him? A moment of weakness? Or was there something more? Something he wasn't saying? The thought made me dizzy, hopeful and terrified all at once. Yo. Sleeping Beauty. Connor called, his voice pulling me out of my spiral. Coffee's ready. Get your ass up. I forced a grin, rolling out of bed and pulling on a hoodie to hide the flush creeping up my neck. You're gonna burn the cabin down with your cooking skills. I shot back, trying to sound normal. But as I walked into the kitchen, his eyes met mine, and for a split second, I saw something hesitation. Maybe. Or curiosity. It was gone before I could be sure. We drank coffee in silence, the tension from last night lingering like smoke. I wanted to ask him about it, to demand what the hell he'd been thinking. But the words wouldn't come. Instead, we packed our gear and headed out for the hike we'd planned, the one that was supposed to be the heart of this trip. The trail wound through the Smoky Mountains, all green peaks and misty valleys, the kind of place that made you feel small and infinite at the same time. Connor led the way, his backpack bouncing as he navigated the rocky path. I followed, my eyes on his back, my mind a tangle of questions. Every step felt like a countdown to something truth. Disaster. I didn't know. We stopped at a lookout point, the view stretching out forever. And he turned to me, his grin wide and unguarded. Worth the climb. Right, he said, spreading his arms like he could hug the whole damn mountain. I nodded, my throat tight. Yeah. Worth it. He sat on a boulder, patting the space next to him. I hesitated, then sat, our knees brushing again. It was becoming a habit. These small touches that weren't small to me. We shared a granola bar. The silence comfortable but charged. And I wondered how long I could keep pretending this was just friendship. You ever think about getting out of Nashville? He asked suddenly, his voice casual but his eyes on the horizon. Like starting over somewhere new. The question caught me off guard. Sometimes, I admitted. But it's home. You know. Got you. Got my mom. Got my work. Hard to leave that. He nodded. But there was something distant in his expression. Like he was wrestling with his own thoughts. Yeah. But what if you could be someone else? Someone who didn't have to. I don't know. Hold back. My heart stuttered. Was he talking about me? About himself? I turned to him, searching his face. But he wouldn't meet my eyes. What do you mean? I asked, my voice barely steady. He shrugged, picking at a loose thread on his jeans. Just. Sometimes I feel like I'm playing a part. You know. Like there's stuff I can't say. Even to you. The air felt thinner. The world tilting under me. You can say anything to me, I said, echoing his words from last night. You know that. He looked at me then, his eyes raw, unguarded. Can I? Before I could answer, he stood, brushing off his jeans. Come on. Let's keep moving. Got a lot of ground to cover. The rest of the hike was quieter. Both of us lost in our thoughts. We set up camp that night in a clearing. The stars brighter than I'd ever seen. Connor built a fire, his hands steady and sure. And I watched him, my chest aching with how much I wanted to reach out, to bridge the gap between us. Dinner was simple canned chili heated over the fire, but it felt like a ritual. The two of us sitting close. The crackle of the flames filling the silence. When we finally crawled into the tent, I braced myself for another night of pretending I could handle his closeness. But this time, he didn't hesitate. As soon as we were in our sleeping bags, he reached for me, his arm draping over my chest like it belonged there. Connor, I started, my voice hoarse. But he shook his head. Don't, he whispered. Just let it be. Okay. I didn't know what he meant, but I didn't push. I let him hold me, let myself sink into the warmth of him, even as my mind screamed that this was dangerous, that I was setting myself up for heartbreak. But in that moment, under the stars, with his breath steady against my shoulder, I let myself hope. Just a little. The next morning, I woke to the sound of birds and the weight of Connor's arm still across me. His face was inches from mine, relaxed in sleep. And for a moment, I let myself study him, the curve of his jaw, the faint scar above his eyebrow from a high school fight, the way his lashes fanned out against his skin. He looked peaceful, younger somehow, and I wondered what he was dreaming about. Was it me? Was it nothing at all? I slipped out of the tent before he woke, needing space to breathe, to think. The clearing was bathed in soft light, the air crisp and clean. I started a fire, more for something to do than because we needed it. And by the time Connor emerged, I'd managed to shove my feelings back into their usual hiding place. "Morning," he said, his voice rough with sleep. He stretched, his shirt riding up, and I looked away, focusing on the coffee I was boiling. "Morning," I muttered, handing him a tin mug. "Sleep okay?" He grinned, taking the mug. "Like a rock." "You?" I shrugged, avoiding his eyes. "Good enough." We packed up camp and hit the trail again, the rhythm of our steps familiar, comforting. But the weight of last night lingered, and I caught him watching me when he thought I wasn't looking. It was driving me crazy, the not knowing, the wondering what he was thinking, what he wanted. I'd spent so long hiding my own truth that I wasn't sure I could recognize his, even if it was staring me in the face. By midday, we reached a river, wide and shallow, the water glinting like glass under the sun. Connor dropped his pack and waded in, laughing as the cold hit him. "Come on, Eli. Don't be a coward," he called, splashing water in my direction. I rolled my eyes but kicked off my boots and followed, the shock of the water stealing my breath. We messed around like kids, splashing and shoving. And for a while, it felt like old times, just two friends. No complications. But then he tackled me, sending us both tumbling into the shallows. And when we came up gasping, his hands were on my shoulders, his face close enough that I could see the water dripping from his lashes. "Gotcha," he said, his voice low, teasing. But his eyes were doing that thing again, searching, questioning. My heart pounded, and I couldn't tell if it was from the cold or from him. "Yeah, you did," I managed, my voice shaky. I pulled away, wading back to shore, my skin buzzing. He didn't follow right away, and when I glanced back, he was standing in the water, staring at the horizon like he was trying to figure something out. That night, we camped by the river, the sound of it lulling me into a false sense of calm. Connor was quieter than usual, his jokes fewer, his smile softer. When we climbed into the tent, I braced myself for another night of him holding me. But this time, he hesitated. "You okay with this?" he asked, his voice barely audible as he lay next to me. "Me?" "Being close." My throat closed up. Was he asking because he sensed something? Because he felt it too? "Yeah," I said, my voice rough. "It's fine." He nodded, but he didn't move closer right away. Instead, he lay on his back, staring at the tent ceiling. "You ever feel like you're not who everyone thinks you are?" he asked, his words careful, deliberate. I turned to look at him, my heart racing. All the time, I admitted, the truth slipping out before I could stop it. He didn't say anything for a long moment. And when he finally spoke, his voice was so quiet I almost missed it. Me too. The words hung between us, heavy with meaning I wasn't sure I could trust. I wanted to ask what he meant, to push until he gave me something real. But fear stopped me. Instead, I reached out, my hand brushing his. And when he didn't pull away, I let my fingers curl around his. It was small, barely a gesture, but it felt like jumping off a cliff. He squeezed my hand back, and my heart stopped. "Night, Eli," he whispered, and then he turned, his arms sliding around me again, pulling me close. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Not with his heartbeat against my back. Not with the hope and fear tearing me apart. The next day, the air felt different, thicker, like the world was holding its breath. We hiked deeper into the mountains, the trail steeper, the views more breathtaking. But all I could think about was Connor's hand in mine last night. The way he'd held me like he was afraid I'd disappear. I wanted to believe it meant something. But doubt was a cruel companion, whispering that I was reading too much into it, that I was setting myself up for pain. We stopped for lunch at a cliff's edge, the valley sprawling below us like a painting. Connor sat cross-legged, eating a sandwich, his eyes on the horizon. I watched him, trying to memorize every detail, the way the sun caught his hair, the way his jaw moved when he chewed, the way he seemed both here and somewhere else entirely. "You're staring," he said without looking at me, a smirk tugging at his lips. "I am not," I lied, my face heating up. I took a bite of my own sandwich, pretending to focus on the view. He laughed, soft and warm, and bumped his shoulder against mine. "You're a terrible liar, Eli." I wanted to laugh, to keep things light, but the weight of everything unsaid was crushing me. "What are we doing, Connor?" I asked, the words spilling out before I could stop them. His smile faded, and he turned to me, his eyes searching mine. "What do you mean?" "This." I gestured between us, my voice trembling. "The way you're acting. The way you hold me at night. What is this?" He went still, his sandwich forgotten in his hand. For a moment, I thought he'd brush it off, make a joke, but he didn't. He looked away, his jaw tight, and when he spoke, his voice was low, almost pained. "I don't know." My heart sank, but I pressed on, reckless now. "You don't know? Or you don't want to know?" He flinched, and I regretted the words instantly. But I couldn't stop. Not now. Because it feels like something. Connor. It feels like more. He didn't answer right away, and the silence was worse than anything he could have said. Finally, he set his sandwich down and ran a hand through his hair, his eyes fixed on the valley below. I'm not like you, Eli," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I don't know what I'm doing. I just know I don't want to lose you. The words hit like a blade. Sharp and cold. Not like you. He knew. Of course he knew. I'd never said it out loud. But Connor had always seen through me. My throat burned. And I looked away, trying to hide the tears pricking my eyes. You're not going to lose me, I said. But my voice cracked, betraying me. He turned to me then, his hand reaching for mine. But I pulled away, standing up. I need a minute, I muttered, walking to the edge of the cliff, my chest tight. I couldn't do this, not the pity, not the confusion, not the hope that kept breaking me. Eli. Wait. He called. But I didn't turn back. I kept walking, the trail blurring as tears stung my eyes. I didn't know where I was going, just that I needed distance, needed to breathe without him clouding every thought. I didn't hear him follow until he grabbed my arm, spinning me around. Don't walk away, he said, his voice rough, desperate. Please. Why? I snapped, my anger spilling over. So you can keep pretending this is nothing. So you can keep breaking my heart without even trying. His eyes widened, and for a moment, he looked like I'd slapped him. Breaking your heart, he repeated, like the words didn't make sense. Eli, don't. I cut him off, my voice shaking. Don't say something you don't mean. I can't take it. He stepped closer, so close I could feel the heat of him. And when he spoke, his voice was raw, unsteady. I'm not pretending. I'm scared. Okay. Scared of what this means. Scared of screwing it up. But I'm not pretending. I froze, my heart pounding so loud I thought it might burst. What are you saying? I whispered. He didn't answer with words. Instead, he reached out, his hand cupping my face. And before I could process it, he kissed me. It was soft, hesitant, like he was testing the waters. But it set my world on fire. I kissed him back, my hands fisting in his shirt. And for one perfect moment, nothing else mattered. When we pulled apart, his forehead rested against mine, his breath ragged. I don't know what I'm doing, he whispered. But I know I want this. I want you. The kiss changed everything. The air between us was electric. Every glance, every touch charged with a new kind of meaning. We didn't talk about it not yet, but as we hiked back to camp, Connor's hand brushed mine more often, his smile softer, his eyes lingering. I was dizzy with it, caught between joy and terror, afraid to believe this was real. That night, we sat by the fire, closer than we needed to be. The stars were out again, a blanket of light above us, and I felt like I was floating, untethered from the weight of my secrets. Connor was quieter than usual, his fingers tracing patterns on the log we shared, and I wondered what he was thinking, what this meant for him. You okay? I asked finally, my voice soft. He nodded, but his eyes stayed on the fire. Just processing, he said. This is new for me. You know, I've never. He trailed off, his jaw tight. Never what? I prompted, my heart in my throat. He looked at me then, his eyes raw, vulnerable. Never felt like this. Not with anyone. Not like this. My chest ached, and I reached for his hand, lacing our fingers together. Me neither, I admitted. And it was true. I'd loved him for years. But this was different. This was real. Not just a dream I'd built in my head. We didn't kiss again that night. But we didn't need to. He held me as we slept, his arm a steady weight across my chest. And for the first time, I didn't question it. I let myself feel it. Let myself believe he meant it. The next day, we broke camp and started the trek back to the cabin, the trip nearing its end. The closer we got to civilization, the more my fear crept back in. What happened when we left the mountains? Would this whatever it was survive the real world? Nashville wasn't exactly a haven for two guys figuring out something like this. And Connor's life, his family, his job, his whole identity was built on being the straight, all-American guy. He seemed to sense my unease, because he kept finding ways to touch me, a hand on my back, a brush of his fingers against mine. At one point, he stopped on the trail, turning to face me. "You're thinking too much," he said, a small smile tugging at his lips. "Can you blame me?" I asked, my voice tight. "This is a lot." He nodded, stepping closer. "I know. But I'm not going anywhere. Eli. We'll figure it out." I wanted to believe him. But the world wasn't as simple as this trail. This moment. I didn't say that, though. Instead, I let him pull me into a hug, his arms strong and sure. And for a little while, I let myself forget the what-ifs. Back at the cabin, we spent our last night cooking a proper meal: steak, potatoes, even a bottle of wine we'd saved for the occasion. It felt domestic, almost normal, but the undercurrent of what we'd started was impossible to ignore. After dinner, we sat on the porch, the stars above us, and Connor reached for my hand, his thumb tracing circles on my skin. "What happens when we go back?" I asked, my voice barely audible. He didn't answer right away, and the silence scared me. But then he turned, his eyes fierce. "We keep this," he said. "Whatever it is. We don't let it go." I nodded, my throat tight. And when he kissed me again, it was different, sure. Deeper. Like he was claiming something he'd been afraid to want. I kissed him back, pouring everything I'd held back for years into it. And for that night, the world outside didn't exist. The drive back to Nashville was quiet, the radio filling the space where words should have been. Connor drove, one hand on the wheel, the other resting on my knee, a silent promise that this wasn't over. But the closer we got to the city, the heavier the weight in my chest grew. The mountains had been a bubble, a place where we could be whatever we wanted. Nashville was different, full of eyes, expectations, and consequences. We stopped at a gas station just outside the city, and while Connor filled the tank, I leaned against the truck, staring at the neon lights flickering in the dusk. My mind was a storm of what if SWAT if he changed his mind. What if his family found out? What if I wasn't enough to make him face whatever came next? He came back, tossing me a bottle of water, and leaned next to me, his shoulder brushing mine. "You're doing it again," he said, his voice soft. "Overthinking." I laughed, but it was hollow. "Can't help it. This is big. Connor. Bigger than us." He nodded, his eyes on the ground. "I know. But I meant what I said. I'm not letting this go." I wanted to believe him, but fear was a loud voice, and it was screaming. "Your family," I said, my voice low. "Your job. Your whole life. This isn't just about us." He turned to me, his jaw set. "My life's mine, Eli. Not theirs. And you're part of it. The biggest part." My heart stuttered, but before I could respond, he pulled me into a kiss, right there in the gas station parking lot, where anyone could see. It was quick, fierce, and when he pulled back, his eyes were blazing. "I'm not hiding," he said. "Not from you." I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded, my throat too tight for words. We got back in the truck and drove the rest of the way in silence, his hand never leaving mine. Back in Nashville, reality hit hard. Connor's phone buzzed with texts from his dad, his boss, his buddies, people who expected the Connor they'd always known. I saw the tension in his shoulders, the way his smile tightened when he read them. I wanted to ask if he was sure, if he was ready, but I didn't. I couldn't push him, not when I was barely holding it together myself. That night, we went to our usual bar, the one where we'd spent countless nights laughing and drinking. It felt different now, like we were intruders in our own lives. We sat in our usual booth, but Connor's leg pressed against mine under the table, a secret we weren't ready to share. When his buddy Jake joined us, cracking jokes about the trip, I saw Connor hesitate, his hand pulling back from where it had been resting near mine. "You two survive each other?" Jake asked, grinning. "Or did Eli finally drive you crazy?" Connor laughed, but it didn't reach his eyes. "No, he's not that bad." I forced a smile, but my stomach twisted. This was the real world, where every word, every touch, had weight. When Jake left to grab another round, Connor leaned close, his voice low. "I'm sorry. I just need time." I nodded, but it hurt. I knew he wasn't ashamed. Not really. But it still felt like a step back. "Take all the time you need," I said, and I meant it, even if it killed me. That night, he came to my apartment, and when he kissed me in the doorway, it felt like an apology. We didn't talk about the bar, or his family, or what came next. We just held each other, the world outside fading away, and I prayed it would be enough. Days turned into weeks, and we settled into a fragile new normal. Connor spent most nights at my place, His toothbrush next to mine. His jacket on my couch. We didn't put a name to what we were. But every touch, every kiss, felt like a promise. Still, the outside world loomed, and I could feel him wrestling with the weight of expectations, the fear of what it meant to be seen. One night, he got a call from his dad, a gruff man who'd always treated me like a second son. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw Connor's face tighten, his answers short and clipped. When he hung up, he didn't look at me, just stared at the floor, his hands clenched. He wants me to come to dinner tomorrow, he said finally. Family thing. Wants to know why I've been distracted. My stomach dropped. You gonna tell him? He didn't answer right away, and the silence was answer enough. I don't know, he admitted. I want to, but it's complicated. I nodded, swallowing the hurt. I get it. He looked at me then, his eyes fierce. No, you don't. I'm not ashamed, Eli. I'm just trying to figure out how to do this without losing everything. I wanted to tell him he wouldn't lose me, no matter what, but the words felt hollow. Instead, I pulled him close, and we stayed like that, wrapped in each other, until the morning came. The dinner with his family was a turning point. He didn't tell them not yet, but when he came back, he was different, quieter. They asked about you, he said, his voice low. Said your family too. Made me realize something. What? I asked, my heart pounding. He took my hand, his grip firm. That I'm done hiding. I want Thesis out in the open. No more secrets. The words were everything I'd wanted to hear, but they scared me too. You sure? I asked. This isn't just about us. It's your whole life. He nodded, his eyes steady. You're my life, Eli. The rest, we'll figure it out. The next week, he told his dad. It wasn't easy. There were tears, raised voices, a door slammed, but his dad didn't turn him away. Not completely. His mom was quieter, processing, but she hugged him before he left. It wasn't acceptance. Not yet. But it was a start. We told our friends next, one by one. Some were shocked. Some weren't. But Jake just grinned and said, about damn time. The bar felt different after that. Like we could finally breathe. Connor held my hand in public. Kissed me in the parking lot. And every time, it felt like a victory. It wasn't perfect. There were whispers, looks, a few customers at Connor's shop who stopped coming. But there were also moments of Grace's sister sending a text saying she was proud of him. My mom inviting us for dinner. Our friends rallying around us like nothing had changed. One night, months later, we went back to the Smoky Mountains. Just the two of us. We hiked the same trail, sat at the same lookout. And as the sun set, Connor pulled me close, his lips brushing my ear. I love you, he whispered. The words simple but heavy with everything we'd been through. I love you too, I said, And for the first time, I believed we'd make it. Not because it was easy, but because we'd chosen each other. Over and over. Against every odd. The mountains stretched out before us. Vast and unchanging. And I knew that whatever came next, we'd face it together.